Have you ever wondered how much you need to really study to get a high grade and how much you really need to know from your textbooks to really do well in the exams? To elaborate the idea, I'm going to tell you a story. Henry Ford, an industrialist from the 20th century who revolutionized the way cars were manufactured, and you probably heard the name of the brand Ford as well. One of the people in the world that were not formally very educated, but yet you could say that they are one of the most educated men in the world has ever known, basically. So this guy was being thrashed by a newspaper, the Chicago Tribune, and this was a time around the First World War. By the way, Henry Ford, as of today's point in time, he would be worth around $300 billion if he was to be alive today. So Henry Ford takes the newspaper to the court. He sues them for basically using slanderous remarks against him, like calling him ignorant. And now the lawyers of Chicago Tribune showed up, and they wanted to actually prove through questioning Henry Ford in the court that, see, that's why I've been calling you ignorant. You are ignorant, actually. So they knew that the guy wasn't very highly educated. He had basic elementary education. So at one point, amongst the various questions that the lawyer was asking him, he was asked, Ford was asked that, can you tell us how many soldiers did the British send in the colonies to get rid of the rebellion in 1770s? And Henry Ford was not sure of that answer, obviously. And he had this smile on his face, and he said that, well, I'm not sure exactly how many soldiers went there, but I'm definitely sure about the fact that very few returned compared to what went there. So this reply was followed with laughter in the entire courtroom. And the questioning continued, and Henry Ford, keeping his calm, continued to answer the questions. The questioning continued for about 1 hour, and at one point the lawyer asked something very insulting, and Henry Ford thought that, okay, that's all. He leaned forward and he asked the lawyer that, can you tell me why should I answer your questions that you've been asking me from such a long time, given the fact that in my office I have a row of electric push buttons, and if I wanted, I could push any one of those buttons and call in men from any discipline from my team of workers who could answer any question that you've asked so far, and even ask you questions that you would have no idea of. Then why do you think should I know the answers to your foolish questions? When Ford said this, basically, there was silence in the courtroom. Everybody was stunned. Even the judge leaned forward and looked at Ford in surprise. That really, he was surprised because he knew the guy has really said something that makes sense. It perfectly makes sense. So the point this story tells you is that you do not need to know a lot of facts to do well, whether that is in your exams or in life in general. You need to organize information in a way that is necessary to succeed. A guy who knows a lot of facts because he's been cramming a lot of facts is not necessarily going to be more successful than somebody who focuses on understanding an application and relies on Google to figure out the facts as and when necessary. The future where you're headed is basically online, and you will have access to information. You don't need to keep it here. You need to keep the application and understanding here so that you have the ability to figure out how to solve situations, not really cram all the information in your own mind. That's not going to be productive. Another example I'll tell you is from my own personal experience. 2010, I was doing A-levels, and I had this subject, business studies, amongst the other subjects that I was doing. That was technically my first year of A-levels, and I was reading the book by Peter Stimson, who basically writes the books of business studies. He's actually one of the examiners, has been the principal examiner for business as well. So now, of course, the book must have been revised many times over, but the 2010, when I was reading at that time, in either the preface or somewhere in the introduction, there was basically a statement by the guy. He said that something along the lines which I remember, that I do not think that even the keenest of students might really read this book cover to cover in one day. The book had around, I think, 500 pages. The edition that I had, later on sizes, things keep on changing. But anyway, it was a big book, either way. That statement caught my mind, and I was like, okay, let's take this as a challenge. I'll take you on. I woke up next day in the morning, started reading the book. By 12 in the night, I was done reading the whole book, and not just the fact that I read it, I got an understanding of the various topics. I didn't memorize anything, but I got an understanding of every chapter and what was in there really. After that, I basically left the book and I focused on past papers beyond that. And even while doing the past papers, my focus was on how to answer the questions that show up in the exam. Understand the answering pattern, understand the logic behind the examiner's mind. How are the examiners setting the questions over the various years, see the patterns in them, and prepare accordingly. So I did past papers maybe about 5 to 6 years for past papers that I really did a lot, with a lot of attention. Maybe 2-3 extra years I did with a little glance, not too much attention. So over the course of about 3 months, I had basically done and dusted the whole A level of business studies. I gave the exam. Amongst many other subjects that I was giving in that session, I got an A star in A level business. Compare that with everybody else in the school who had actually been studying that for 2 years, appeared for AS, now giving A2 only, didn't get an A star. I got an A star first attempt, full A level of business. That too amongst my initial subjects, because initially when you go into A levels, it's a little overwhelming, but I made it. Not only in that, but in many other subjects. The point being that prioritize and organize information. Do not just read every little thing in the textbook and try to memorize it. Do not try to do every single past paper that is out there. Because really, to be successful, there is so much more than what any of these textbooks you read in the school are telling you. There's way more to be successful in life than really what these textbooks of your subjects are telling you anyway. So you don't want to waste too much time on them, and just get done with what seems important, and that is going to be sufficient, because your goal is to achieve a good grade. You will have all your life to polish up the other areas that you are interested in. And in fact, I would recommend that finish your subject early. If you are in a school where they drag on one chapter for days or weeks, when that chapter could have been done in 2 days or 3 days or 3 lectures, you're in the wrong school. And maybe all schools are then falling in the same category. There's no point in dragging on the discipline for that long, which you can finish off in lesser time. Because you've got to increase your speed of reading, speed of processing information, and cover the same distance in less time. And if you can do that, it's way better to read some other book outside of your main academic curriculum that could really make you understand how to be successful in life. There's so many other good books worth reading. If you're interested in some that could really change your life, hit me a message. And regarding the other part about how can you then know what's important and what's not very important in terms of memorizing or learning from the textbook and the past papers. Well, that takes a little bit of practice. If you are through O levels, you should have that kind of a mindset. But if you have difficulty with that, that's where I come in. That's where I come in. And I've never felt more satisfaction or more happiness than actually helping students from around the world. I wake up in the morning and when my schedule starts and until my schedule ends, I'm basically linked to my students and doing the work with them, answering their queries, and that's my happiest time basically, happiest time of the day, because I'm really engaged and enjoying helping other people. So that's where I come in. You gotta sign up for that though. I cannot say everything in the video, it's already 11 minutes. So that's where you sign up and use what Henry Ford was doing, leverage. Use the experience of learned men to make your life better. Because if you're not going to make your life better now, you're only going to end up making it worse. Keep that in mind.